Hey everyone, and welcome. Today's explainer is an absolute deep dive into the psychology of screen addiction and the actual neurobiology driving our daily habits. We're going to look really closely at the hidden machinery inside your head that keeps you glued to your screens, and more importantly, how to actually break free using science-backed strategies. So, if you've been wanting to reclaim your focus and understand exactly what is happening in your brain every single time you pick up your phone, well, you are definitely in the right place. Let's get into it.
All right, so picture this, because we have literally all been there. It is 11:47 p.m. Your eyes are completely dry, you're absolutely exhausted, and you know you need to go to sleep. You tell yourself, okay, just 5 more minutes. But an hour later, you're still doom scrolling. You aren't even enjoying what you're looking at anymore. You finally put the phone down and just feel this weird, empty numbness behind your eyes. Welcome to the modern phenomenon officially dubbed brain rot. It's that exact feeling of cognitive softening after prolonged exposure to low-value content. But why do we do this to ourselves when we logically know better?
Section 1. The Great Dopamine Myth, or the biology of wanting, not liking.
Look, for years, pop psychology has completely sold us on this myth that dopamine is the happiness chemical. You know, the thing that makes you feel good when you eat a piece of chocolate or win a game. But the biological reality is actually entirely different. Dopamine is not about pleasure at all. It's the chemical of anticipation and craving. It's released before you get the reward. It's the neurochemical equivalent of leaning forward. It doesn't make you happy. It creates this relentless motivation that makes you want things, even if those things don't actually make you feel good in the end.
To really picture this, we kind of need to look at the brain's mechanics. Deep inside your brain is the mesolimbic reward pathway. Think of it like your brain's wanting center. The ventral tegmental area, or VTA, acts like a factory producing dopamine and shooting it right over to the nucleus accumbens. Now, right behind your forehead is the prefrontal cortex, which is the logical decision-making part of your brain. That part is supposed to act as the brake pedal on this desire pathway, evaluating if the craving is actually worth pursuing. But as we're going to see, modern technology is basically engineered to make those brakes fail completely.
And the contrast in how your brain fires is just stark. When you're just resting, doing nothing, your baseline dopamine neurons fire at a nice, low hum of about 3 to 4 times a second. But the moment you anticipate a reward, like, say, hearing your phone buzz with a new notification, that firing rate violently spikes to 30 or 40 times per second. That massive surge is what creates that intense, almost physical feeling of needing to check your screen.
Which brings us to Section 2, How Tech Hijacks Your Brain, the science of persuasive design.
So different stimuli trigger vastly different dopamine levels. Eating when you're hungry, that gives you a 50% spike above your baseline. Sex gives you a 100% spike. But check this out. Scrolling a personalized, unpredictable social media feed triggers dopamine levels comparable to smoking nicotine, a 150% spike. Our brains literally just did not evolve to handle this level of constant artificial stimulation. And let's be clear, this is 0% an accident. Software design features are engineered to exploit this exact pathway. Things like the infinite scroll, personalized AI feeds, unpredictable notifications, they act exactly like slot machines. They rely on the psychological principle of the reward prediction error. Because you never know if the next swipe is going to show you something boring or something amazing, your dopamine just stays chronically elevated in anticipation. Over time, this constant flooding leads to dopamine desensitization. Your baseline drops, and that means normal everyday activities suddenly feel just unbearably boring.
And the real-world psychological impact of this is honestly pretty devastating. According to researchers, the average human attention span on a screen plummeted from 2.5 minutes in 2004 to just 47 seconds in 2023. Under a minute! Our neuroplasticity is essentially working against us here. By training our brains to expect a micro-reward every few seconds, we are quite literally losing our capacity for sustained attention, deep thought, and long-term planning.
Section 3, What Not to Do. Let's debunk the extreme detox.
Okay, you've probably heard of this trendy fad called dopamine fasting. It's where people lock themselves in a room, avoid all screens, refuse to eat good food, and sometimes even avoid making eye contact with other human beings just to reset their brains. But as Harvard Health neutrally points out here, that's a total misunderstanding of the science. Dopamine doesn't just vanish when you avoid stimuli. Ascetic deprivation and extreme punishment, they aren't grounded in real neurobiology, and honestly, they usually just lead to a massive binge later on.
Section 4. Building your dopamine menu. These are the CBT-backed strategies that actually work. Instead of fasting, we need proven psychology like the functional ABC model: antecedent, behavior, and consequence.
So, the most counterintuitive but effective CBT technique out there is progressive exposure to boredom. We constantly use our screens to avoid feeling bored. But boredom isn't an emergency. It's actually the birthplace of creativity and introspection. Try this 4-week plan. Week 1, spend 15 minutes a day completely screen-free, just sitting with your thoughts. Week 2, push it to 30 minutes. You are absolutely going to feel restless. That's just dopamine withdrawal. Keep going. By week 4, you'll be at an hour, and your brain will start to relearn that a lack of constant stimulation is actually a really safe, peaceful state.
Now, to fill that time, you need what psychologists call behavioral activation. You need to build an offline dopamine menu. Let's walk through the starters. These require very low effort but provide moderate healthy pleasure without that nasty digital crash. Instead of scrolling when you have 10 free minutes, intentionally prepare a cup of coffee. Stretch. Listen to a full album all the way through, no shuffling. You're actively teaching your brain to find joy in singular, focused tasks again.
Then we move to the main courses and desserts. Now these take more effort, but effortful activities produce higher quality dopamine. Things like engaging in intense sports, walking outside without your earphones, or creating something tangible. Because these require real effort, they give you a sustained lift in your dopamine baseline, rather than the brutal spike and crash of a social media notification. You're rewarding your brain through pursuit and genuine effort. But how do we make sure we actually choose the dopamine menu over our phone? We use a technique Dr. Anna Lemke calls self-binding. This basically means creating physical friction between you and the screen. Do not rely on willpower alone, it'll fail you. Charge your phone in another room. Take those social apps right off your home screen. Buy a $10 mechanical alarm clock so your phone isn't the first thing you touch in the morning and the very last thing you touch at night. Change your environment, and I promise your behavior will follow.
All right, shifting gears just a bit for Section 5, Health and Regulation Updates, in the latest medical news. Just as we need to regulate our own personal biology, global agencies are stepping in to regulate public health.
First up, we're looking at some pretty decisive steps recently taken by the FDA to safeguard consumers. They've announced their intent to restrict non-approved compounded GLP-1 drugs, so these are the active ingredients in those major weight loss drugs that are currently being mass-marketed by compounding pharmacies and telehealth companies like Hims and Hers. The FDA is cracking down here to ensure that consumers are only receiving drugs with verified quality, safety, and efficacy. And they're aiming to stop misleading advertising that claims these compounded versions are identical to FDA-approved generics.
We've also seen some seriously groundbreaking medical approvals recently on the global stage. Let's walk through these real quick. In January, the FDA approved Zia-Kubo, which is the very first treatment for children with Menkes disease, a rare and devastating genetic disorder. Then in February, they approved Optune Pax. This is an incredible non-invasive device that uses alternating electrical fields to disrupt rapid cell division in pancreatic cancer. And over in Europe, the EMA recommended Tzield-Ildade, which actually works to delay the onset of stage 3 type 1 diabetes. It is just a time of immense progress in gene therapies and innovative treatments right now.
And finally, looking at grassroots health initiatives, the NPPA's Price Monitoring Research Units, or PMRUs, have been incredibly active. They recently hosted 29 different events and seminars across 12 states and union territories. These events are so vital for raising grassroots awareness about drug affordability, price regulations, and really just educating the public on how to ensure they're getting fair prices for their healthcare needs using tools like the Pharmasahi Dam mobile app.
Okay, bringing it all back to where we started today. You, your brain, your habits, and your environment. You now understand the dopamine trap. You know the biological difference between wanting and liking. And you have the tools, like building friction and progressive exposure, to take your life back. So, I want to conclude this explainer by leaving you with a provocative thought to challenge you right now as you click away. Your attention is your life. It is literally the only thing you truly own. So what will you do with the next hour?